Hello, this is Jim McKeeth, and welcome to this developer skill sprint on integrating cloud services with the REST JSON client stack. As a skill sprint, this is going to be a short 20-minute video with one topic. We're going to have a demo, discussion, some tips and tricks, and some short URLs for you to go out and get more information. We're going to encourage you to download the trial, and you can even follow along if you're watching this later, or if you've already got the trial downloaded, go ahead and fire it up and you can do everything we're showing you today. So the REST JSON client stack gives you access to REST and JSON based web and cloud services. Now there's over 50,000 different public services like Dropbox, Twitter, Instagram, Flickr, you name it pretty much, and it has a web service. If you go to Programmable Web's directory right there, you can check out their list there. They have about 50,000 services available there. You can also access private services like those built with .NET WCF, OData, Java, JAX, RS, etc. Lots of web technologies. Pretty much every platform, including Rad Studio and Delphi and App Method, give you the ability to build web services. And so you can consume these web services using this client stack. This is great for interoperability between different technologies. And then once you have these web services, you can expand the functionality of your desktop and mobile apps. So everything I'm going to show you will work on both desktop, mobile, even console applications if you really wanted to. So the components we provide make this really quick and easy to take advantage of these various web services. Like I said, they're everywhere, lots of services available. Now the stack consists of the REST components. These are the components you can drag and drop onto your application to access the REST services. We also have a REST demos, which you have the source code for, in Object Pascal that shows you how to access common providers like Dropbox, Facebook, Google+, etc. And then we give you the REST debugger. The REST debugger lets you do ad hoc REST requests and then rapidly prototype your application. I'll show you exactly how that works here in a moment. Some of the features of the REST and JSON stack include asynchronous execution, support for proxies, HTTPS support, which is really important if you're accessing a service that requires authentication, as well as all the authentication components you can need, including OAuth 1 and OAuth 2, which services like Facebook, Google+, etc. take advantage of different OAuth authentication components. The other really cool feature is the dataset adapter, and what this will do is it'll take REST data that is in a tabular format, so kind of like data you would get from a database, and we'll adapt it into a dataset so that you can easily bind it to your application. So all this is bound together with support for live bindings and design time execution. So let's go ahead and take a look at the REST JSON client stack in action. So this is a website here called Spitcast that gives you surf reports around California. So you can select a different region and see what the surf report is in that area. Now, one thing about this website is they have an API. This is very common. Anytime a website wants to share data, they're typically going to have a REST API, and they're going to have something like this where they're going to document the endpoints. So we're going to grab this endpoint right here, this all spots, and we're going to use the REST debugger. So to get to the REST debugger, you can just come in here to Tools and REST Debugger. The way the REST Debugger works is you provide a URL of the web service you want to debug against. So I'm going to say send request. And what this is going to do is going to go out and hit that REST service and pull down the data. So this is the header we got back. We can see that it got 200 OK, so it was successful. The body, which is the JSON data, we can see is in here. And this JSON data is in tabular format. So we have the same record over again, county name, latitude, longitude, spot ID, spot name. So if we go to tabular data, we can see this is using the dataset adapter to convert this into a dataset, a table. Now, sometimes you'll come in here and you'll see that there'll be a thing that says like query date, query time, and then results, and then all of this data will be in a subnode called results or something like that. And so in that case, you can come in here and change the root element to drill into where the tabular data is. This way, the REST debugger is able to display the right information. So if you come in here and you don't see the data you want, then usually that means you need to drill into the right spot to find that. Now, the The REST debugger lets you do a lot more than I'm going into right now, but I'll point out a couple things. You can use different methods. So default method for getting data is get. This is the same method you would use for visiting a website with a web browser. But you can also use put and post, delete and patch. You can also have parameters. So if you look at the website, you notice it has a parameter here of county name. So you can have a parameter like that in the REST debugger. And the parameter type would be a URL segment. So you specify you have a URL segment called county name, and you get a default value. And so what this does is it lets you have parameters that in your program you could change at runtime. So you could change which county you're pulling surf spots from and use that through the parameters. And so that way you're not string concatenation in your code, you're just changing the value of a parameter. This is the authentication tab where you can specify you're using a different type of authentication. Depending on which type you select, different boxes will be enabled here. And if you're using OAuth, you can use the OAuth assistant and it'll walk you through the process of connecting to OAuth and setting that up. And then you can also specify proxy server settings here. When you're all done, when you've set all that up, this fabulous button right here makes it really easy to prototype your application. So this is, like I said, a very simple example here, just to kind of show you the tip of the iceberg, as you will. But I'm going to go ahead and hit copy components. And it's copied the components all set up that I need to the clipboard, so they can be pasted into my application. So if I was using authentication, the authentication component would be in there as well. So let's go in here and make a new application. So I'm going to do file new FireMonkey mobile application Delphi. This could be either Object Pascal or C++. It'll all work the same. And choose a blank application here. And I'm going to go ahead and just hit paste. And there's my components on my form. Now I'm going to just prototype a really quick application here to access that Spitcast data. So I'm going to do that, put a list view down. And let's put down a dataset adapter. So we're going to use a REST response dataset adapter and a FD mem table. So the dataset adapter is going to take this REST response and put it into this FD mem table. So right now, it's going to point it to the FD mem table and the REST response. So now it knows where to pull the data from and where to put it. So I'm going to go ahead and execute my request. Now, the way this usually is going to work, you're going to have multiple requests all using the same REST client. So now if you look back at the example here in the documentation, each of these is a different request because they specify a different endpoint. So the client API is the base URL up to this point here, and then this is an endpoint with a parameter in it. So in this case, I only have one REST request. So I'm going to go ahead and execute this request by right-clicking on it and saying execute. And once that's done, it's saying, hey, I was successful. And now I can go to my FD mem table and go to the fields editor and say add all fields. And there's the fields from my JSON data. So I can bind this up visually. So we'll take the FD mem table, we'll bind that to the list view, and we'll put the spot name in the text and the county name in the header text. So we're going to execute this REST request again, and there we go. There's our data at design time in the form. So at this point, this application will be ready to run. All I have to do is add a line of code in it to when I want to execute that request. So we'll go ahead and go to our onCreate event, and we'll say REST request.execute. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and run this on my Win32 preview. So I'm going to say add platform 32-bit. This way, just for quicker turnaround time, but this will run as well on a mobile device. Let's go ahead and run this here. Save that off. And we see there it is running. So I could have a response to clicking on one of these nodes or tapping on a mobile device and take that row, go out and find what the ID was of that spot, and then pull data from one of these other things here, like the forecast based on the spot ID or the neighbors from that spot ID, and display that information. Or I could display some of the other information that was in that data set. So very quick, very easy way to go out and grab some data through REST and put it into an application. I just saw it was one line of code, and all that was invoking the REST request. This is the REST demos sample that ships with XE6. Each of these tabs represents a different example web service you can connect to. So, for example, this one here connects to Discogs, which is another simple API. Here's the base URL. Here's the resource name with a parameter of name. And then you provide the artist you want, Sting, and hit fetch. And it goes out and hits the web service, pulls it back here. So you can see this one here has the response. You'd want to drill into this is the root node to use the dataset adapter if you're going to use that. Other ones here, Twitter, Google Tasks, Facebook, these use keys. And so the way this works is there's on the side, it'll tell you that you need to go to this URL here, dev.twitter.com, and create a new app. And then that app will provide you with keys that you provide those keys. And you have to go through a process of getting a token and auth code. And then once you have that token and auth code, so over here, it'll fill out the token that it gets back. And then you can get an access token, and then you can send a tweet. So first thing you do is get the auth code, which it puts here, and then you get the access token, which goes here, and then you can send a tweet from here. So other examples here, the example I'm going to show you is Dropbox. So with Dropbox, you need the client secret and the client ID. So we're going to go ahead and build a quick Dropbox client application and look at the code directly itself. So if you wanted to go into the demos, though, you can come in here, just go to the tab you want, take a look at the code. It's pretty easy to reach in and grab the exact piece of code you need. Okay, so this is a Dropbox client that I built. This one specifically is mobile. The sample I just showed you, the REST demos, is actually made for desktop, so you can see how those are different between the two. So I'm using OAuth 2, which is what's required for Dropbox. And then the way this works is in order to get authentication, you provide a app key token. Okay, so you have to have your app key, and you provide that here. So let's get our app key. We go to Dropbox, we log in to our Dropbox account, we say create app, and we're going to create a Dropbox API app. We're going to access all the files, and we're going to be all the files and all file types. And we'll call it Skill Sprint. Create app. Now, one thing that's really important here is we want to put HTTP localhost. And this is the URL that redirects to after you perform OAuth. Okay, so we use this, and it makes it really easy. I'll show you how it works in the code. So from here, we need to grab this app key. So we'll grab this. All right, and we're ready to go. So now let's go back into our code here, and we just put this app key in here. Okay, and so here the redirect URL is localhost. So this needs to match. In the browser, right here, we have an event set up, did start loading. And so did start loading is going to parse out the access token that's given back. Now, we use on did start loading because it's redirecting to localhost. So it's going to redirect to localhost. But before we get to localhost, so on did start loading, which happens before we navigate there, we're going to parse that URL and then cancel it by navigating to blank. Okay, and so for the example of this demo, I want to get the token by parsing it out here and put it in memo1.txt so I can see it. Okay, and then the fetch button here is going to then use the metadata URL, the metadata resource off the Dropbox API to pull down a list of all of the files in the root of my Dropbox folder. You can take a look at the documentation and access a number of different resources for downloading files, uploading files, etc. But this is just a simple one to show you a listing of the files in my Dropbox. That's really all there is to code here. The first one here is the authorization. The web browser did start loading, where it parses out the token, and then where it goes out and downloads the metadata. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at this running on my Android. Here's the app running on my Nexus 5. When I tap the auth button, it brings up the sign-in screen. Notice it has the name of my app here, Skill Sprint. So go ahead and tap in email, and I'll type my email address in and password. Then when I'm done, I tap the sign-in button, and it redirects me to this page here where it's telling me that the app, Skill Sprint, would like to access the files and folders in my Dropbox. Now, if I'd selected a different set of criteria, we would see that explained here. And so at this point, I can tap allow. And so there is my auth token. Okay. Now, next time this app is ran, when you run the auth again, it actually caches that information and it gets a new auth token each time. Okay, so you don't have to have the user log in each time, but you do run auth each time in order to get the token. Once you have the token, that token's used in the fetch request here and pulls down a list of all of my data. So if we scroll down here, we can see I have a folder called attachments, another folder called camera uploads, and another folder called keystroke, keystore, Dell, I don't even realize all. Here's my Dropbox folder inside my Dropbox folder, kind of an Inception type situation there. So anyway, there it is. Simple example of how to use the REST client components to connect Dropbox. So I've shown you the REST JSON client stack. This includes the new REST client library, the REST debugger, and the REST demos. So now you have everything you need to quickly and easily add features from all these different online services to your desktop and mobile apps today. For more information, you can check out the samples. The REST demos are available there. They're only in Object Pascal, but you can look at it and probably translate it to C++. I've done that before for some of them. For example, the Dropbox demo I showed you. If you have source code, so if you've purchased Pro or higher, then you can get access to the source code for the REST component library as well as the REST debugger. There's a link for the DocWiki page on the REST client library along with a number of examples. And there's a couple Code Rage 8 videos you can check out there. If you only get one link from this video, grab that one there, delphi.org/category/REST. That is a link to all of my REST blog posts, including a post that has these slides and my examples in it. Some other blog posts available there in C++ using the REST client library as well as some in Object Pascal. So next time, join us in 2 days for integrating more of iOS into your applications with Objective-C calls. So that's one of the things that's great about RAD Studio, Delphi, C++ Builder, App Method, is that we give you all these components like these REST components I showed you today, but then also give you the ability to integrate into the platform by calling all of the platform APIs that you'd want to. So this session is going to show you how to call various other platform APIs as well as possibly some third-party libraries directly from your app. So this session will be on Thursday, July 3rd, or Friday if you're in Sydney or Tokyo and want to tune in for the third session. So download the trial now so you're ready to go and check out the full schedule of all the skill sprints that are coming up. And with that, if you're in for the live session, we're going to do some live Q&A.
Milan, you posted about some issue. It looks like you were trying to use OAuth 2, I guess, with Facebook. And a couple comments. You saw Jim in the presentation use OAuth 2 to get to Dropbox. So you can take a look at that. Also, in November, there was a RAD in Action webinar where Daniel Wolf, one of the presenters, showed how to use the REST components to get to Facebook using OAuth 2. So that one, I just want to look it up again real quick. So if you go to Embarcadero.com/RAD in Action, it was the November. It was Embrace and Extend Connecting Your Infrastructure to Mobile is the name of the title. Let me get to the page. Okay, so I'll post that link for you as well, Milan. There's the link to the RAD in Action webinar. And Daniel Wolf, along the way, it was, I think, it was about 2/3 along the way where Daniel showed, I think it was Chapter 6, in integrating social media via REST, where he was getting to his Facebook application. So you can look at that and also download a white paper. And there's also the source code for the webinar, so you can take a look at that. And then Jim just showed, again, using OAuth to get to Dropbox. So there's a couple examples there. Jim was saying, "Wow, I wish I had these for my Salesforce and Jira integration." He had to roll his own. Well, yeah, well, you can always redo it, Jim, if you wanted to use the components or have fun using the components in the future. Roger didn't notice that we had made a change in the developer skill sprint schedule. We combined the GPS accelerometer Windows tablet talk into last Thursday. So Roger, I did that one, and I've got the replay. I just need to upload it, and that will give you the information. And the landing page, the Skill Sprints landing page, always has the latest. So let me put that in the Q&A for everybody, that URL. And sometimes things get subject to change depending on presenter availability and other uncontrollable factors. But I covered all of that in the create tablet-specific VCL Windows apps, where I cover accelerometer, location, tablet style, and so on. You can use the components, and you can also use the lower-level sensor framework, which is in system.sensors or system::sensors namespace if you're doing C++. Let's see. Abhinav's asking, he makes a call using client data set, and he's making a call. He's using live bindings and list view. And when he calls again, it removes the items. You should have to think about that one. That's with live bindings. I'll have to check about live bindings interaction. If you're writing in code and populating the list, then you're in full control. Adding data. If it's bound that way, then it's whatever the selection set is or the result set is. I would write code if you want to add and continually add results to a growing list versus one select at a time. Is there a Twitter example source code somewhere? I'll have to look. I don't know that anybody's done a Twitter. We should also mention that TMS Software has their Cloud Pack for Delphi and C++, and they have interfaces. They have component interfaces for a whole range of social systems and download systems, including Twitter. But it shouldn't be too hard. Jim showed you using the REST debugger. So just start the REST debugger. It's under Tools, or I added Tools REST debugger, and just put URLs in and just fire off and see what you get back as far as JSON. It's really easy to kind of spelunk into these REST interfaces to see what it is you might need to set for in your JSON and your API calls. Let's see. When making homebrewed REST servers, are the resources around describing what functions are needed? Alpha, I would, it depends on the interfaces that you want to surface. And then what types, that you're going to be returning back, what JSON packets, formats you're going to turn back. There's no, REST just describes that ability to make those calls via HTTP, but it doesn't specify what the APIs look like. That's up to you as a REST server creator. As far as creating REST servers, I covered using DataSnap has a REST server capability, and so that's one thing you can take a look at. But I guess, JT, maybe we'll have to create somewhere along the way on a skill sprint, if people need it, a few different REST server applications using the Indy HTTP component, for example, and then have clients that work with it. Let's see.
The source code is available for download now on C++. You go to delphi.org, category REST, or just the top post on delphi.org is the source code for this, along with the slides. So Here's the Dropbox demo download link. Takes you to Code Central, which has both C++ and Object Pascal implementation of the Dropbox client. Dropbox client uses OAuth 2, so it's a great example of how to use OAuth 2. And also you can download the slides, which has all the links in it. The other demos, the REST demos app that ships is for desktop, whereas this one on the Dropbox download is, or the Dropbox demo I made is for mobile. Most of the functionality is going to be the same between desktop and mobile. The REST demos though is only in Object Pascal. There's not a C++ version of that. So the REST debugger is a great tool, very useful. I use it quite a bit as well, especially that copy components button that you can just copy the components after you've got them all set up in the REST debugger, paste them into your application. Also in the Dropbox demo I showed, a lot of that code could have actually been put in the properties at design time and not in code. I put it in code just so it's easier to show on the screen. It's all in one place, but it could be put in the properties of the REST components as well, and which would reduce the amount of code you had to write as well. It says, please display the slide with the most useful links. Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll click right here to view the slides. Right there, mbt.co, and it's uppercase, case sensitive, uppercase REST underscore, uppercase C client, uppercase L library. If you go out there, then you can check out the documentation, which will explain which ones use OAuth 1 versus OAuth 2. Question here, is the REST components available in professional or only enterprise? So all the REST components, the entire REST client library and the REST debugger, are available in professional and enterprise both. But if you do want to use them for mobile development and you have professional, then you need to add the mobile add-on pack or go with Rad Studio, which includes mobile support. The sample app that I showed, the REST demos, is only in Object Pascal, but most of it is just a matter of knowing what kind of strings to build and where to send them and stuff like that, what the API endpoints are and such. So you're able to pretty easily port it from Object Pascal to C++. The demo I showed, the Dropbox client, I implemented exactly the same thing in Object Pascal and C++, and it was based on the code that's in the REST demos. Actually, I created the C++ version first based on the code REST demos, and then ported that back to Object Pascal. So it went round trip. But the great thing about the Dropbox demo is it shows how to use the authenticator, the OAuth 2 authenticator. OAuth 2 is a little easier to use than OAuth 1. The big difference between OAuth 1 and OAuth 2 is OAuth 2 is designed around the idea for also supporting non-web apps. So OAuth 1 is really designed around the idea of supporting web apps. It'd be great if your demos were added to the RAD examples. So like I said, the demo I showed, the Dropbox client, is based on the REST demos that ship with Rad Studio. And so those are in. So if you go into this folder here, users, public documents, Embarcadero Studio, 14 samples, Object Pascal database, REST demo, then that has the entire REST demo application and all its source code, and it includes Dropbox and the rest of them. It does not have the C++ version. C++ version is only in the demo I wrote for this one, and maybe that will be included in a future update. I'm not sure. DocWiki page does walk you through explaining some of the different parts of the REST client stack, and then also has walks through all the examples, and so it talks about for Twitter and Facebook, etc. So this is going to tell you what you need to do or how the REST demo behaves in order to access these different APIs. So anyway, thanks for joining us. Thanks for checking out this skill sprint. Hopefully you'll join us again. The next skill sprints we have later this week is integrating more iOS with an Objective-C call in your app. And the next week is integrating more Android with a JNI call in your app. So lots of great fun sessions. And we're looking forward to seeing you again. Thanks a lot.